When I was in consulting, we need account managers that know the industry very well, that have 10 or 15 years of experience. Those are very expensive, but of course, these are big deals, so it pays off. But now, our deals are smaller, but we need also less experienced salespeople, because the marketing and the online presence and everything, the customer is already very well informed before he or she comes into the sales cycle.
My name's Mike Lander, and you're listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, where we bring you actionable insights about sales RFPs, negotiations, and difficult procurement discussions from sales leaders, brand leaders, and procurement leaders. Please subscribe to get updates when new episodes are released. Stefan, thanks ever so much for joining me on Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast. I'm delighted you could join me.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
And we met through I use your software. So I use your platform. Having done a lot of research, I ended up finding your platform. And you'll talk in a lot more depth about what your platform does and about how it's a very different take on producing thought leadership. So I'm fascinated to have you as a guest on the show today. So without further ado, explain to our listeners, who are you, what do you do, and then something unusual about yourself.
Okay, maybe start with the more usual stuff. I graduated as an engineer a long time ago. Then I went into consulting, maybe not the most obvious career path, but I enjoyed it very much. Consulting was like in the domain of always in the domain of enterprise software. So we used to implement large software systems like SAP in multinationals. So I've done that like with Nestle, Atlas Copco, a couple of others. Very, very interesting. But then afterwards, after a certain period of time, I've done that 14 years in total. Then I was thinking, why not starting something myself, like a company? And then, of course, as an engineer, creating something yourself, like a piece of software, and then selling it into the market. That's, of course, always a dream. So that's what I did. And in 2012, we started what was back then called Survey Anyplace. So as the name indicates, like a survey platform. But we wanted to differentiate towards the other survey software by giving the respondent, the one that takes the survey, giving that person like a superior experience. And by doing that, collecting better and more data. Yeah. So we did that. We launched, and the growth went in beginning okay, but then after a couple of years, because there was a lot of competition. Survey software is almost a commodity. And then we were thinking, to have really product market fit, as they call it, we need to niche down on something more specific, more differentiating. And then in 2019, we found that niche. Basically, that was like to switch into assessments, which is technically not so different than surveys, but it's about assessments that deliver personalized advice. Personalized advice under the form like of an advice report that can be or that is automatically or the content of this advice report is automatically generated based on the answer that someone gives to the questions in the questionnaire. Yeah. So, for example, a cybersecurity maturity assessment where they ask like, do you have already antivirus on your PC? Yes or no? And then you get a maturity level. If you answer no, and you say you don't have antivirus yet, and probably your maturity level will be low. And also the advice in the report will be different depending on your maturity level, and so on and so on. So, but the whole flow, creation of the assessment, then the logic in between, like what to advise in which case, and then also the advice report and making it also pretty like branded in the house style of the customer. All that flow is configurable in our platform without technical knowledge. So that's in fact what we do. And I mean, just a higher objective, of course. I mean, the software is assessment software, but the higher objective is really to automate advice. While before with the surveys it was data collection, if you had to say it in 2 words. Now it's automating advice. And why do we do that? For people or companies that have advice as core business, mainly consultants and professional services. Yeah, to be able to grow their business without growing their headcount. Yeah, that's fundamental. So when I was in consulting, we had to grow our business. We had always to recruit new people. Not that I don't like people, but it's more scalable when you can grow without growing that headcount proportionally. And we want to give those tools and deliver those tools to professional service companies to achieve that goal.
Perfect. So, something unusual about yourself?
The unusual, I forgot the unusual, the most difficult. I like to do a lot of sports. That's not unusual as such, but I like to to combine things about that I learn in sports in my job. So I listen also to a lot of podcasts and during workouts, during jogging or even cycling, I like to have analogies like from sports, apply them in the company. For example, last a couple of weeks ago, we had someone who was comparing climbing a mountain with business, and the fact that you have to separate the objective from the objective is to reach the top, and you have different paths to reach the top, and then you have resources that you need to reach the top. So someone has to determine what the top should be, whether it's worthwhile to go to that top. Someone should determine the right path, and someone should take care of the resource, like the gear and everything that you need to reach the top. So these are all different things, and you can almost one-on-one apply it to business. So that's what I like to do.
Exactly. I had an ex-pro rugby player on the podcast a while ago. Same sort of thing. He was like, actually, if you look at a rugby team, compared to leading a business team, there are a number of similarities which carry across.
Yeah, you see often that people who do competition in sports are also very performance driven at work, which is of course a good thing.
Exactly. So let's get into the questions for our listeners. So first one, what role do strategic assessment surveys play in developing thought leadership? So as part of the sales cycle, especially when a consultancy maybe is dealing with more complex enterprise clients. So why does that become really critical?
I think assessments in the sales cycle or the sales and marketing cycle can be used to, at the same time, demonstrate your expertise and collect valuable data and insights from the customer. Yeah. So at each stage in the cycle. Yeah? So we have on the top of funnel, and that's more marketing, I know, but I mean, I think it's equally important. At the top of the funnel, you can have an assessment that you can even put on your website, like give away for free, or can be also on trade shows and so on, where people with there it's important that you, with minimal amount of questions, because people at the top of funnel are not prepared to spend enormous efforts, like half an hour or an hour or so to answer your questionnaire. So minimum amount of questions, give them a maximum amount of insight or advice. What works there very well is also benchmarks. I think
exactly
every consultant should have benchmarks, whether he or she collects them themselves. For smaller companies, maybe not that easy to do, or not that easy to have enough critical mass so that it's statistically relevant. But they can also have it externally, of course. But comparing people or companies to benchmarks works very well in the top of funnel, and assessment is ideal suited for that. Yeah. So that you have a score and then the benchmark and what you have to do, and so on and so on. You can also, if you have customers in an industry where other customers or other potential customers look up to. There's always like these companies that people look up to. Then also you should mention them. I mean, this is independently of the assessments, but that's something that you should use. And then more to the bottom of the funnel, when people are already like looking at your product or services, you can do more extensive assessments. What we always advise is to have a diagnostic offering, a scan, diagnostic scan. You can call it what you want. But we think that professional service companies should not do it for free, like at a fixed price, not too high, not too low. Like, for example, cybersecurity again. We'll do a cybersecurity scan of your company for, 20,000 euros. And this is a report that you get. And this is an example of a report from another customer. And then you can see where the gaps are, where you have to improve. And then you sell, in fact, it's a way to sell the next project, which is the actual implementation and which is a higher value project. So to do this kind of scan, an assessment, of course, is also is an ideal tool to do so. And for your thought leadership, because you were asking about thought leadership, the fact that you have bundled all the knowledge, not only from yourself, but from all the consultants in your company into one assessment, which can be taken in 5 minutes, is a proof of thought leadership for me. Not only thought leadership that you can explain it in a sales call, but that you take it one step further. You have put your thought leadership in a digital tool, which can be used by your customers and prospects.
Exactly. And I know, having been in consulting for many, many years, particularly now in this market, thought leadership is even more relevant than it ever was before. In the recent Salesforce survey across lots of clients, it came out as being one of the top 3 reasons why they choose a consultancy or service provider is you need thought leadership, you need a position, a point of view in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And tools like yours help to do that. By the way, anyone listening, this is not a sponsored show. It's not a sponsored podcast. It just happens that I use Pointerpro and then got to know Stefan. So I thought you'd be very interesting to come on to the call, onto the podcast for the audience. So next thing. So what gap did you see in the market? And how did you go from kind of idea to proof of concept to MVP? And this is more, yes, it's about obviously your company, but anyone listening that's maybe running growth or is in a £1 million turnover professional services company looking to grow to 5 million, 10 million, that journey is really critical because there are certain staging posts that you have to get through. So how did you go from, we can see a gap, then into, so we've now got an idea of a solution, we've built some sort of proof of concept, and then we've launched the product and now it's starting to scale. How did that journey sort of map out?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, with the survey tool back 10 years ago, the only gap that we have seen then, it was not like kind of scientifically proven or so, but that the existing survey tools were like more market research focused and not so focused on giving the respondent a great experience. Yeah. So that's something that we then tried to solve with our tool back then. Now then the competitors did the same, or I mean, they all moved towards more user friendliness. So as I said, then we had like a difficulty to prove our unique value, or like differentiation was not high enough in the market. And then in the second phase, when we switched to assessment, the gap there was identified by talking to customers. There's no higher science or magical vision or dream that I had or so. But it's just by talking to customers that they say, okay, we have your questionnaire, but we like also like these personalized reports. Can you make that for us? Can you develop that for us? Of course, we can develop that, and we develop it the first time and the second time and the third time. And then after a while, you see a pattern and you see, okay, maybe we should make it a product, this kind of personalized reports with the configurable rules, of course, that the customer can configure it themselves without us having to develop each time. So that's in fact how the evolution to the assessment took place. And when it comes to professional services, like our point of view is, before starting the assessments and to have to put your knowledge into such an assessment that you can use with prospects and clients, you have to first go to a couple of other phases. You have to specialize, and you have to also, and that's our point of view, go from time and materials to fixed price project. Because in time and materials, if you make your operations more efficient, then you just bill less, which is not the intent, of course. In fixed price, when you make your operations more efficient, thanks to digitization and tools like us, then you do the same output, you produce the same output with less work, so your profitability increases. So that's why you have to do that homework first before going to digitize your services. Very important, and that's our point of view. Step away from time and material is maybe unusual. Time and material is the only advantage is that it's easy, but it means that you have not done the effort to really evaluate what the value is of the result of your work.
Yeah.
Because you take the very simple assumption that the value is the number of hours times rate, which is mostly an underestimation. So the real value, you have to try to calculate the real value, also check with clients, of course, and then go to more fixed price offering for certain projects that you're specialized in.
So, following on from that is, can you describe your journey from building a kind of SaaS technology business, and then more specifically about the sales pipeline? Most of my listeners are from the kind of growth side of the business. They're head of sales, head of growth, CROs, and obviously they're looking for any insights and tips about how did someone grow their business. And obviously building sales pipeline right from top of funnel through to converting and negotiating contracts is always of interest for them. So just talk about how you've built the kind of the sales side of the business and what you'd advise other people to do that have a SaaS type offering.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in the very, very beginning, the sales was based on our network. Yeah, so we reached out to our network, and then the network is not like an automatic guarantee for success, but the network allows you to go and talk with people at companies who could be buyers. Whether without network, you would probably even not have these conversations.
Yep.
Now, to convert these conversations into like real customers, then the advantage of your network disappears, and you of course have to have a good product and good sales skills also. But yeah, I mean, so when you do that, and from your network you have a couple of customers, like here in Belgium we had some of the bigger banks, for example. So those are logos that you then can use to go get the next customers more outside your network then. So that's the way it goes. But still, if you have to go after customers like in a proactive way, it's very time consuming. So we relied also or almost exclusively also on an inbound, so that customers come to us or prospects come to us and we convert them into customers. And yeah, via digital presence, via the website, which is optimized for search engine, search traffic, also paid search traffic and organic search traffic. So we have done a lot of effort since the beginning to have a good online presence, and that has resulted in a lot of inbound traffic, not always. I mean, some most of the traffic is in fact, just to come and look, and they're not potential buyers. But yeah, a small percentage is of course a potential buyer, and they fill in a form on the website, and then our sales team contacts them. From the sales side, what I can say is the ideal scenario, I think, is that you, via online marketing, can catch relatively large companies where otherwise you would have to go after, like with the outbound sales kind of motion. So companies like, we have customers like Deloitte and AstraZeneca that came in via online marketing. Yeah? So you have a low acquisition cost. Online marketing, the acquisition cost has increased, but it's still relatively low, especially if those companies come in via that channel. And then you have, of course, a relatively high lifetime value, which is always the trade-off in SaaS. So those companies generate a high lifetime value because it's the ones that pay the highest license fees, and also if you treat them well, then they will also not churn, so they will stay for years and years. And you can even, like with Deloitte, if you're, for example, Deloitte Netherlands as a customer, we can go to the other countries of Deloitte and so on. So there's a lot of potential there. So there I see, large companies that come in via online marketing and that need relatively low sales touch or effort. We have a sales team which is fairly junior. Yeah, and they know the product very well.
Yep.
But we don't need, like when I was in consulting, we need account managers that know the industry very well, that have 10 or 15 years of experience. Those are very expensive, but of course, these are big deals, so it pays off. But now, our deals are smaller, but we need also less experienced salespeople, because the marketing and the online presence and everything, the customer is already very well informed before he or she comes into the sales cycle. Yeah. And the sales cycle is very bottom of funnel. You have questions like which functionalities, it's almost technical. Yeah. And you don't need very senior people for that know the industry and that have like connections with CEOs. And so you don't need to have that. And that's an advantage because it's lower the cost of sales for us.
So very much a kind of marketing-led, I guess your own thought leadership, content-led, search-optimized approach to lead gen at the top of the funnel.
But professional services companies can also do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's a productized solution, SaaS solution, and therefore the type of salespeople that you engage are very different than if it was a bespoke enterprise solution that you were bespoking for every single client. It's a very different sales cycle and a shorter sales cycle as well, I'd imagine.
Yes, certainly the sales cycle is about 40 days. Whereas in when I was back in consulting for these bigger projects, it was like sometimes more than a year.
Years.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, Stefan, just to kind of like close off the episode, just if you were giving advice to a SaaS tech leader who's kind of like, they've got a POC, they've got enough market feedback to go, there's something here. What advice would you give them about launching their product and then taking it to market and scaling it? What do you see as being the kind of like the 2 or 3 big milestones that you need to get sorted?
Yeah, the first milestone is probably getting your first customer. As I say, go to your network. Make sure that you have these conversations. Normally, you should have had them already, like while developing the product, because it's the same people that you ask for inputs that afterwards can become a potential client. Then via your network, you should you should be able to sell some contracts. And then you have to go outside your network as soon as possible. So the first milestone is when someone becomes customer. But the second milestone is like when someone from outside your network becomes a customer. That's also like a moment of joy for us. When someone from Australia or Canada or like far away becomes a customer, then it means that it's really for the product, not for me, not because they know me, but it's really for the product. So that gives a feeling of satisfaction and confirmation that your product is worth something. So that's the second milestone. And for that, I think you have to certainly, if you switch from professional services to SaaS, potentially that's sometimes a move that people make. Try to, if you want to go outside your network, try to put content online, exchange experience for free without asking something in return, as from the beginning. But when you do consulting, when you deliver professional services to customers, your content marketing should almost be like a side product. So because you already give the advice and you make deliverables for customers, you can as well put them into LinkedIn posts. Of course, you cannot maybe share everything because it's customer sensitive data and so, but you can then generalize it. And here's what I learned and so on and so on, where you can put templates online or so. All these things, that's thought leadership, of course. And it shouldn't, the trick is it shouldn't ask or require so much additional work from you because you're making already these deliverables during project work, but they are like a side product or derivative almost from those products. Use it to build your thought leadership. Then your thought leadership will result in more clients, more business, more interests. I mean, that's
it becomes a flywheel effectively.
Sure. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Stefan, it's been a real joy. We're at the end and we're about half an hour in. So just to summarize, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, especially when it comes to social networks. So I post regularly, and you can also, our listeners can get in touch to exchange experiences. I'm happy to connect. And then for the product itself, for Pointerpro, that's on pointerpro.com on the website, where you find, of course, information about the product, but also best practices around assessments and how to evolve from a consultant into more digitized services, like transition to fixed price and to have a maturity model for your business and so on. How do you do that? All kinds of information around that. That's also on the website.
Very good. Stefan, thanks ever so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
Thanks for listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast series with your host, Mike Lander. Please subscribe so that you'll catch all the next episodes.